Hi, welcome back to Enjoying the Word, and we're thinking about studying the Bible. We're in this stage here, okay? Here's the process. Having looked to see what the text says, we're focusing in this series on the learn phase, where we look at not what the text says, but having seen that, what the text means. That involves studying these aspects of the text: the context, historic and written, the content, the details and flow, and the intent. And so we're working our way through those. We've thought about details. Let's think about the flow of thought. If we don't look at this, what we end up with is the idea that the Bible is sort of a jumbled assortment of theological truths. So you can kind of throw in all these theological truths and then some filler material and then shake it up, and it kind of randomly sits there on the page. The reality is that's not what happened at all. Of course, the authors were trying to communicate something, and so there's a logical flow of thought to what was written. So thinking about this passage then, 1 Peter chapter 2, what do we have in terms of flow? The flow of thought, the structure of this section. Notice the connecting words at the beginning, so. That obviously ties back to what has come before. Right, so in chapter 1, the salvation described in verses 3 to 12, the kind of follow-up verses 13 to 25, in light of your salvation, there's this transformation of life that's taking place, this sanctification, if you like. So this is kind of a concluding statement. Two things: put away and long for. So there's the old life, put that away, and long for this new source of life so that you can grow up the goodness of God that is available as pure spiritual milk to us. Then we look at verse 4. It's not a conclusive statement like verse 1 is. The connection here is kind of a continuation rather than a new thought. It's not a total change of direction, but equally it's not a kind of a strong logical connection. It's kind of as you come to him and on it goes. Right? So it's zeroing in on something, comparing the living stone that is Christ with living stones that are us, rejected by men but chosen and precious in God's sight. That's Jesus. We also are tied into Jesus's temple building mission, if you like, to connect God and humanity together. And so we've got all this language of chosen and precious repeated down here, the not being put to shame those who believe in him. So he's really focusing on the connection between Jesus and the believers. It feels like the flow of thought here is having kind of concluded what's come before. I'm not moving on, I'm underlining something. I'm underlining the connection between believers and Jesus, their identity in Christ. So this is kind of flowing on from that. So the honor is for you who believe. What I've just been saying in the previous verses, that's true for you. But for those who do not believe, this is true and this is true. Who's they? You see, as you're noticing the details within the content, you're noticing the details that show the flow of thought. They, who's they? We're looking back, a stone, a rock, the cornerstone, the builders. It could be them. Is they the builders? Well, no, I think you'll find it's these guys, those who do not believe. They stumble, they disobey the word as they were destined to do. At that point, Peter's finished with the they, but he's not finished with the section. But you, he's back to the you again, back to the believers. And then we get this little closing blitz of Old Testament language to reinforce again, this is who you are. And so the flow of thought in this section, once you look at it and make sense of it, it's not too difficult. Got the conclusion to what's come before in the initial 3 verses, and then a zeroing in on your identity as followers of Christ in contrast to those who don't believe. And final emphasis, this is who you are. Having done that, from this point on, he's free to move on, and he's going to move on to a new subject, kind of a couple of verse transition, and then he's into the specifics from 2 verse 12 onwards. So there's a quick look at the flow of thought, the structure of this section. We've got one more video to look at as we think about the learn stage using this passage as our focus.